Brandon Weichert is an expert on space policy and has written a book entitled Winning Space: How America Remains a Superpower. He can talk to us now from Florida. Thanks for joining us so much there, Brandon. Now, how much of this decision do you think by NATO is to appease President Donald Trump?
I don't think it has anything to do with appeasement. I think it has to do with making sure that our satellites are protected and that there are no strategic gaps in our national defense. Right now, 70% of the U.S. military systems rely on satellites. If you can take out enough of those satellites, not many actually, if you can just take out a handful of them, you've severely degraded our ability to defend, say, Europe from Russian attack, or the South China Sea or Taiwan from Chinese attack. The North Koreans and Iranians are also developing some interesting space capabilities in the electromagnetic pulse technology domain that could potentially threaten our satellite constellations as well.
But then how would you regulate something like this effectively?
Well, the first thing you'd have to do is, obviously, we've got to first get everybody on board with the prospect that space is a warfighting domain. Now, the United States did not start this trend. Nobody really started it. It was just a byproduct of the Cold War. The more that technology advances, the more likely we're going to find new ways to use space. Warfighting is a component of human nature. So the first thing we need to do is defend the systems we have, signal to our rivals and adversaries that we're not going to let them push us around up there. And then once we've signaled that, we can then talk about coming up with new legal systems for governing the use of space. Space is going to be with us for a long time, and we're all going to have to learn to use it in new and different ways than what we've gotten used to. So basically, the old system, the Outer Space Treaty, for instance, of 1967, it no longer is effective because it doesn't take into account new technologies and new innovations going on in the space domain.
With all of that in mind, how likely, or do you think that there could be a risk of a full-blown space warfare?
Yes, I actually think that over the next decade is going to be the closest we're going to come to what I call a space Pearl Harbor. I've written an article for Real Clear Defense. This is a major component of my book, which is coming out in fall of this 2020. And basically, I think that either the Russians or Chinese are going to start looking at ways to debilitate our satellite networks unless we do something to make them more survivable. And part of making them more survivable is working with our allies in NATO, working with countries like Brazil or Japan or Israel to help to make our current satellites more survivable, and then make new constellations that are going to also be more advanced and yet more survivable than they currently are.
All right, Brandon, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Brandon Weichert from Florida there for us.